Hey, so there's been a lot of talk about morning routines and just kind of general things that help people get their day started and keep them on track. So I kind of wanted to get into not only my routine for the day, both morning and kind of afterwards, but really go into what has helped me just kind of make every day count, regardless if that's first thing in the morning or a little bit later. So I will start out with, I picked up a Moleskine notebook. I found it at Target. I don't remember the exact style, but it's something like the Professional Series or something like that. But a lot of really cool features in it. It has a table of contents. It has a kind of key tasks page. Obviously, I haven't used that at all, mainly because we have a power list, so key tasks are an everyday thing. There's also project planning, but that has projects, dates, and notes on those projects. There is a full personal goals section, as well as a group goals section. Obviously, that's kind of however you want to use them, but as of right now, I just have all of my personal goals from, a year to 20, 25 years kind of listed on that. Not really in any particular order, but that was just me kind of getting everything down. Group goals page is still wide open, figuring out if I want to organize things or what I want to do with that. And lastly, there is just kind of a blank notes page that you can kind of use for whatever. Now, as far as what I use it for, I have these pages here. So it is 3 different sections, along with the date, so you can kind of date everything as you go. But I have the top section. I have 3 main pieces of information that make it to every day. I call this top section my anchor. That's kind of where I come back to kind of ground my day, whether it be now or in the future. Note number 1 is weather. I know in the past I've been largely affected by weather. I know that if it's cloudy out, hit the steering wheel. If it's cloudy out, that can kind of adversely affect how I feel in a day, at least previously. I feel like I've gotten a little bit better about being on top of things rather than being influenced by outside sources. But, we can all get better at some things. But either way, I have the weather written down. I have the time. That'll tell me what time I'm actually sitting down and filling this out. And then I have location, so where it is that I'm filling my entry, for lack of a better term, at. So I don't necessarily do this when I first wake up. I usually give myself some time to get some stuff done before I dig into this. Right underneath that first line is that whole section. I kind of just write down what the day is looking like so far. I'm able to see what has influenced me to, maybe do this a little bit later in the day. With the time written down on every single entry, it's really easy to kind of go back and realize where I've started previous days. Be like, hey, I started early on this day, or even on a current day, be like, hey, I'm on a better track than last week when I started a little bit later. But I will write notes as far as how my mood is, anything that has affected how I'm feeling at the moment, whether something that happened last night, if I worked late, got up late. Really just kind of center myself, see where I am in the day, see a general outline of what I'm going into today, what I'd like to accomplish today roughly, and sometimes just mentally. I think a lot of it is really just touching base with myself to see where I am at the moment. So top little section, everything is really short. I keep everything relatively simple, that way when I do look back and I can scan over the last week or so and quickly see, hey, these days you were doing well, these couple days, maybe something happened you need a little work on, kind of build from there. But it allows me to really check into everything that I do and line up the rest of the day. With that, the second column, it's going to be the thinner column off to the side here, that one. That is what I've turned into my power list. Now, funny note about the power list. Those of you who don't know, which there are some of you that definitely do know, the power list I learned from Andy Frisella. He mentioned it in his podcast. And when I first heard it, in my mind, I was like, that's a great idea. That makes sense. And then I didn't do it. I continued to not do it because at the time I was not taking real accountability for my day. I was managing a restaurant and I kind of felt that time was not something I had control of, and I had no real willpower to do anything outside of my day. I would get off relatively late the night before. I'd wake up and I would want to do nothing. Literally nothing between the time I woke up to the time that I either went to the gym or I went to work. Like I would get food, I would do small things, but I didn't want to do anything. I felt like, I do so much at work and I'm so emotionally taxed that I just don't want to do anything. I would rather just sit here, zone out, kind of collect my thoughts and do something for getting ready to go in the next day. So it wasn't until I won a power list from Andy off of Instagram that I realized, hey, if I'm going to have this, I should probably use it. So, of course, as soon as it came in the mail, I told myself, hey, this is it. You have it. You won it. And now you have no excuse not to use it. So I jumped into it, and since then, it's just been such an increase in confidence, in feeling like you're getting shit done, even if you're not fully completing your list and winning every single day. You can at least try. And it's crazy how much accomplishing just 5 tasks in a day can do. And they don't even all have to be major tasks. Like for me, there are some days where it's like, hey, you really need to do laundry, and laundry will get put on the list, because if not, that's one thing I'll just push off and I won't do until it's like, oh man, I really need to wash some clothes, which I'm getting better at week by week. But that being said, that still ends up on my list because I will very quickly find ways around it when I know that I just need to get it done. And that's kind of come into, I need to do laundry, put laundry away, the full process, not just wash clothes, leave it in the basket for the next week and call it a day. So power list goes there, and you can see like previous days I'll put down if I won the day there. So I still keep track of what I'm losing and what I'm not. And then the large portion of this, which is all right there, what I've been doing with that and kind of really building on that is I will take the main 3 things that are on my mind and really just kind of build on those. So let's say, at least to give an example here, where it's just finding a point that maybe you thought about that morning while you were in the shower, or for me, if I'm filling it out a little late while I was at the gym or leaving the gym. You have these points where there are things that can not only help you, but hopefully help others in the long run. And what I do is I write down kind of reminders to myself, as far as just, hey, like, remember this, or keep in mind that when you do this or do that, or things like that. So really getting the 3 main things that are just kind of on your mind and that you can really dig into and kind of have that really reflective, introspective look at 3 of the main thoughts that are going on. A lot of this is where I get a lot of personal development stuff, because I'm able to read through previous entries for, a few months and kind of realize, okay, like, I've said this a few times and it's gotten better. I've improved on it. Or, hey, like, I dealt with a previous thing here. It's good to keep that in mind and really just kind of keep yourself grounded while you are improving, because I feel like if you're able to reflect and really kind of tie that into where you are now, whether that be decisions you have to make or anything like that, I feel like it's extremely helpful. So that is typically my routine, at least morning. So that's the first part of my day. I really try and at least sit down at some point and fill this out. And this just kind of gets me in the right headspace. Even if I don't start the day in the right headspace, or maybe I'm not in the right headspace all day, at least I can look back and be like, man, what was that day that I just was really out of it? And I can find it, because all I have to do is leaf through and be like, oh, yeah, I remember that day. So there's that. And what I want to build on, which kind of ties into it, is I bought one of these little guys too. Again, Moleskine. I don't have like a brand loyalty at all, but their stuff's really nice. It's pretty durable. This thing is still going. So I got this idea from a friend of mine who said that he usually carries around a index card and will write down thoughts throughout the day. And I've kind of taken that and turned it into this kind of more in-depth, constant personal development thing. So also that's kind of what went into this, just an expanded version. So this was on my power list. I just told myself, hey, just write down what's going on in your day. If you could literally stop and be like, man, like, I'm just really out of it. Write it down. Be like, hey, like, I'm really not feeling it because X, Y, and Z, like, not sure what's going on. And then also turn around and be like, hey, like, I found a really great, like, concept today or an idea today. I'm going to go write that down. And I really wanted to find something that could fit in a pocket that would just easily be like, hey, done, open, written, and call it a day. So that is kind of how this whole thing started, with just writing down ideas, writing down things. And so now it's turned into, now that my 3 main ideas, and I get those out and in the bigger notebook, this I carry around with me, and it's for literally anything else. If I'm walking around in the day and an idea comes to me, I'm like, oh man, I really need to write that down, I have this. I also do, if I'm reading books or anything like that in that personal development space that could possibly give me some ideas or possibly help me out in doing things such as I finished Awaken the Giant Within recently from Tony Robbins, and a lot of the values work and a lot of questions that are asked and all that. I did that in here because it's nice to be able to sit down, write it down immediately, because you know you have this near you, and really have the space to just kind of mess around with it. So this has been a really great thing to have, because it really does allow me to stop, and in the middle of the day, if I am kind of feeling a little frazzled, and hopefully I have time. I mean, in restaurants you don't always have time, but hopefully if I have time, just kind of stop and write something down. You know, it could be as simple as, what is a thought that you had this morning, to something a little bit more complex as far as like, hey, like, there's this really big business idea. I'm going to write this down because who knows if I'm going to use this later. So that's that kind of covers the 2 main things that kind of encompass my full-on morning routine. I will touch on, as far as waking up, I've been trying to wake up early a little bit more consistently. My alarm is set for 6:30 every day. I know there are people who get up earlier, there are people who get up later. I honestly don't think that the time is necessarily everything. However, I do realize that if I wake up earlier, it is so much better for me personally, and I get a lot more done. I feel a lot more productive. Now if I sleep in past, gosh, maybe even like 9, I start to feel it throughout my day, just kind of like feel like you're catching up for the rest of the day. So I typically get up at 6:30. I try and shower first thing, and then here or there, like, I will, if I'm going to the gym that day, I'll try and get to the gym first thing, A, to beat crowds, and B, just makes it a lot easier to kind of get up and just do it. And that's kind of why this takes a little bit later in the morning for me sometimes, just because I'll get the gym done first. So yeah, aside from that, I'm interested to kind of learn more about it. I'm still obviously kind of dialing this in. I have been doing this morning routine for probably not that long. I'm still kind of figuring out what works best. Finding this notebook has actually helped immensely because I didn't know what I was going to do with it at first. But buying it and figuring it out has just been amazing because now I've been able to kind of look at it and just really dial in where my week, month, and then once we get to it, a year is going. So hope this video finds you well. It is definitely warm here in Southern California. So if you are here, then hopefully you're staying cool. If you are not here, either way, I hope you have a good rest of your day.